Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Malia Klein. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Kim?
And I'm doing excellent. And so Malia is an author of Sisterly Shove. So we're going to talk about, because when you hear the title, you kind of know there's a problem, right? And so we're going to be talking about navigating family conflicts in dementia care. And so obviously you wrote this book, and based on the title, there's some history there. So, and definitely some personal history. So what happened in your family?
Well, clearly sisterly love changed to sisterly shove. And like for a lot of people and a lot of families, I would say screenwriters would call what we had an inciting incident that, touched off a whole different family dynamic. So basically, my mom at age 84 was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, given 3 to 6 months to live. She was a caregiver for our dad, who was 86 and had dementia. And so, boom, all of a sudden, here we are, with our mom gone. She lasted 5 months. And here's our dad, who, is just struggling to get by. So what happened was my sister and I had differing versions, hence the shove, about how older people especially with dementia, should be cared for. And she believed if a family member did not have hands-on care of your relative, that you were throwing them away. My view, since I had an 8-year-old daughter who would not get in the car with her scary grandfather, and had to go to soccer games and all the things that women and men have to do. My solution was to find a wonderful memory care facility for him. So I did that part of the caregiving for 5 years, and my sister came to visit. She stayed in the facility. She's like, "This is horrible. I'm going to elder nap him and take him back to California." I lived in North Carolina. So that's the basic story. So needless to say, the family dynamic was all crazy from then.
It happens, unfortunately, and so it happens a lot. And I usually laugh and tell people it's usually the person that's not doing the caregiving that complains the most. And so I just think the irony of that is kind of sad. And so you and your sister obviously had different views, but those views didn't bring you together, pushed you apart.
I would say it pushed us apart. I mean, part of me was relieved to not have the responsibility of having him, a mile from my house, that someone else had stepped up. My sister had stepped up. But at the same time, I was a little dismayed that she thought I had done a horrible job over 5 years, because I really poured myself into it. So I would say in the initial stages, it definitely forced us apart. We never got to the point where we didn't speak to each other. Clearly I was grateful for her. It's just her intensity with caregiving. She was a physician, and she quit practicing medicine to take care of him. And she literally took care of him 24/7 with no relief and no help.
Oh,
So that was way hard for me to accept. Just again, the differing views of family responsibility. And we also had 2 brothers who lived remotely. I lived in North Carolina. My sister lived in California. The brothers lived in Boston and Milwaukee. So we were all scattered apart. But anyway, they unfortunately, I think this becomes a female problem. And I hate to say that. And I don't know that it's as true anymore. The book came out in 2018, and that it was based on really a 15-year journey, because my dad lived to be 100, even though he got dementia at about 85. And so anyway, it was a long-term process. And, our relationship in regard to your first question, that it forced us apart and then probably ultimately brought us together. So again, the sisterly love turned to sisterly shove, and maybe back to sisterly love at the end.
Well, that's good. There's always we like those happy endings to the story. And so, but, you talked about, her being the caregiver, 24/7, without help. And how did that affect her in her health?
Well, unfortunately not well, in my opinion. And I don't know if she had 2 children, if they would agree with this, but I think that the fact that, she cared for him in relative social isolation, watching a lot of television until her husband came home, I really think it hastened the onset of her dementia. She now had dementia, and unfortunately passed away in May of 2022. So she's been gone more than 2 years. But basically, thank you. She, just not getting out, not having interaction with other people. I think it just took its toll. And if you look at the rest of our family history, I mean, none of us was surprised when my dad got dementia at 85. It was a pattern in the family. Of his 4 siblings, one died at age 81, so she didn't have time to get the around age 85 dementia that is so common. But the other 3, absolutely, it was like dominoes falling. They hit 84, 85, and they all started succumbing to memory loss. So it was no surprise to us that, we were in the crosshairs too, except my sister, was closer to 65, not 85. So really, what did happen? The only difference I see in the family progression of this disease is that she was socially isolated. She stopped her career. She took care of him 24/7, and that brought it on 20 years earlier.
Wow. I wouldn't have, that just surprised me, in the sense of that that you think that it caused it to come early. And I'm not surprised. It was just a little shocking to hear.
Yeah.
And so, but considering that, your father's, side of the family obviously has history there. Her getting it early, how did her dementia diagnosis affect you?
Well, I think it was terrifying. She, we had this certain expectation that once we got to be 85, that we might have more of a preponderance. And they say that, and I don't know what the statistics behind this are, but that 50% of us will have some kind of dementia, memory loss, Alzheimer's by the time we're in our mid 80s, 50%. So if you take the 4 of us siblings, 2 might get it and 2 might not. So, I mean, that I kind of held on to that, but so getting it so early, I mean, honestly, I started counting the years. I'm 5 years younger than she was. So I'm like, well, I'm 1 year closer to when she got it. I'm 2 years closer. It was that impacted me, just, and what it meant for her and her husband and her children was horrible. They were losing their mom very early. But I'm a bit selfish. You couldn't help but think about me and my 2 brothers and what it meant for us. So yeah, it was devastating to see it.
So tell us about the impact of dementia on the entire family dynamics. So because you now have a whole family of having to deal with this.
Right. And I know, and I don't speak to the others directly, but it's got to be impactful for them. My brother, that's 3 years older than I am, we have talked about, will we be the 50% who don't get it? So, I mean, there's that, but I think it was just an omnipresent factor. And my sister and I took most of the lead in deciding about care for our father. Our brothers, were busy and lived far away. And, honestly, we were the ones that embraced it. And I don't know if that's because we're females. I hate the stereotype, but it's just the way it worked out. But I think it impacted everybody. I mean, it's unfortunately, dementia and Alzheimer's are a disease that seems inescapable. And, I mean, we work on drugs, and we hope that medical research continues to find some silver bullet that will help all of us. And I don't know, it's just, any family that is impacted by it definitely, there's no way it won't change the dynamics of that family. And you need help, you need expertise, you need somebody to advise you. You really, going it alone is a very scary place.
Yes, I can imagine. And so, so let's talk about the scary place
Okay.
just for a minute. And so, because you and your family have had to go through this, did you develop some effective coping, strategies that other families can use?
I would say so. And since I'm part of a group of people who write about Alzheimer's and dementia and have memoirs and novels and care guides and all of that kind of thing, I think I learn a lot from my colleagues, my fellow authors, about this whole subject. So, I mean, if I had to list out coping strategies, I would say number one is to be present and available for your family members. I mean, I felt like I was present and available for my sister, but she knew best. She was a control freak. I mean, that's me, but she was. And so I felt like I was there as much as you can be when you live on opposite sides of the country, but just be there. I mean, it's kind of like, I make an analogy to Thanksgiving. You show up at Thanksgiving and one person's trying to get the dinner ready and they're cooking the turkey and they've taken on all of the responsibility. Please offer to peel the potatoes, share the burden. I mean, that's a silly, simple example, but don't just say things like, I'm here for you, to the caregiver. If somebody's got primary responsibility, say, what can I help you do right now? Be very specific in your communication. Another thing, and I maybe was not good at this, is remember the spouse of the person who is the primary caregiver. Their life is also thrown in turmoil. Their children are affected. So be a good relative, remember the spouse, thank the spouse. I mean, it sounds simple, but you may let all these emotional things about who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong, your different perspectives, put all that aside and just be kind and good with each other. Let me see, what else? Take breaks. Offer the caregiver an opportunity to take a break if they will. My sister did not want to take a break because she knew the system. She knew what it took to take the absolute best care of him. The only time she let me fill in for her was when there was a family wedding and she had to drive, 3 or 4 hours away to go to it in a vineyard in the Napa Valley. So she actually left him with me then. So I tried to give her breaks, and that's important. And this is an interesting thing that fellow AlzAuthors has written about. It's called a relationship contract. So when you are in family dynamic situations that you've been in your whole life, let's say since you were children, You have certain things. You go to your parents' house at Christmas or Hanukkah or whenever, and you expect these things to happen. Maybe somebody does all the work, somebody doesn't do all the work. Somebody is back to the old peeling of the potatoes thing. That contract is out the window when somebody gets dementia. You cannot expect life, family dynamics, holidays to go on the way they always have. You're being delusional if you do. So there's a book called Creating a New Relationship Contract, and it's by a really smart author, Deborah Halsey, and she admits to that, and the contract now becomes, we're not going to live the way we always have. Here's how it's changed. Here's how your behavior needs to be different. So you're not inventing it as you go along. You can check off things, and part of it is rudimentary things like doctor's appointments and, all of those kind of things. But overall, it's just changing the people in your family's expectations and the way they move forward and the way they think about things and celebrate things, because the world is upside down. Best way to put it.
No, I can appreciate that, and so a lot, and so most definitely.
And don't just let it slide. It's a contract. Do it like you would. You're a lawyer.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're specific. I mean, maybe sign it. I don't,
Get that agreement in writing for sure. So yeah, I just think having clear expectations is always, and communication, and saying, and half the battle with caregivers is they don't ask for help because they feel bad about asking for help. So you have to get past that, so definitely. So Malia, this has been great. How does someone find you if they'd like to get some more information?
There are a couple ways. I'm a advertising copywriter, so I have a website, which is Malia Klein, my name, MALIA KLINE @.com, MaliaKline.com, but that's not really specifically related to this. The book is available if you search it on Amazon, Sisterly Shove. So that if you're interested in more of the story, that's where you'd find that. Also, I've put my email out there, which again is my name, Malia Klein, MALIAKLINE @gmail.com. So if, I'm a person who's had the experience with my family. I'm not a psychologist or an expert or whatever. So I may not be, emailing me may not be the best resource, but definitely checking out Sisterly Shove, at least might make someone feel better about their dynamics. And just to go back to your first question, how did I feel in the end? My sister and I had a lot of conflict, but honestly, I hope she would outlive me, because the kind of care and concern she had, I wanted to be the beneficiary of that. And unfortunately, that did not happen.
And so, well, and I'm glad that it, that everything worked out, in the end for sure. And so most definitely. And so Malia, this has been great having you on the show today.
Thank you, Kim. I really appreciate the opportunity, and maybe something I've said will help somebody else.
We're always looking for that. And so we look forward to having you on again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day, Kim.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcasts as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.